All right, on this Garlic Marketing Show, we're going to talk about growing both your life and your business through vision. I've got my friend Jason Wojo. Jason, say hi.
Hey, hey.
He was a scientist to a client of Lifeonaire to CEO, and we're going to talk about the science of it. We're going to talk about how they helped one real estate investor who was suffering from too much opportunity and cut down her work time in half for twice the money. How the wrong vision can destroy your business and your life, and the three questions that you need to answer for your vision that you probably won't do. And we're going to talk about being willfully negligent with your business, as well as another one of their success stories, a multifamily business owner who entrapped himself and started to be able to travel. All this on the Garlic Marketing Show, but one of the best ways to really grow with the right people is through having great case stories. Go to videocasestory.com where we can help you collect, craft, and deliver those case stories. All right, let's get started.
My name is Gino Wickman. I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world. And Ian did exactly what I hoped. He got me really comfortable with putting videos out to the world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
All right. Let's just talk a little bit about what Lifeonaire is first, and then and what you all do.
Yeah. So what we do is we come alongside business owners that are and entrepreneurs, real estate investors, anybody that has something that has the tendency to take over their life, and come alongside them and kind of show them how to structure their business and run their business in a way that complements their life versus competes with it. Man, I know you probably see this a lot too, is like, and listen, business is fun and it can become addicting, and there's all kinds of reasons that you want to work a lot. But what we see is like, we got into business to have a great life at the end of the day.
Yep.
And that's not always the case. And so the whole Lifeonaire thing, think of a millionaire as someone who has a lot of money, a Lifeonaire, take that life component to millionaire. And then that's kind of what we're all about.
That's awesome. And tell me a little about the history of the business.
Yeah, man. So it actually started, it was not founded by me. Actually, I got in 2 years after after it was founded by Steve Cook. And here's a guy who's a successful business owner, did really, really well. But all of a sudden he realized, like, all I'm doing is like, I feel I'm busier than ever. I need more money to make ends meet than ever. Like, I'm more stressed than ever. And like, there's got to be something broken with this formula. And so he kind of reversed engineered this thing called Lifeonaire, which really is that, how do you really create a business that does not require you to be at the center of it, where you are pulling all the levers and doing all the work. I got in 2009 as a member, as a student of Steve. He was my coach. And from there, a couple of years, I got out of my job. I had a full-time job at the time, got out of my job within 11 months, went full-time in the business. And then from a couple of years later, started coaching for Lifeonaire. A couple of years later, started speaking for Lifeonaire. A couple of years later, Steve asked me to partner with him, and now I run the company. And so it's been a really cool transition. And dude, completely unpredicted, by the way, because I was trained as a scientist, and I went to school for literally 15 years of schooling, only to find out that working for somebody else is terrible. And I don't want to do that. And so here we are.
It is amazing, working for someone else. It's like, I have clients and stuff, but there's always those bad days, and I'll go through LinkedIn and I'm like, oh, I can make a ton of money working for someone else in this big company. And then all I have to do is imagine like being in meetings and like being in boardrooms. And I'm like,
Not for me either.
No.
Yeah.
And so what type of science were you in?
So man, I was in, I have 2 bachelors. I got exercise physiology, and another bachelor's in microbiology,
Wow.
and molecular biology. Then I got a master's in exercise science, and I got a PhD in immunology.
Wow.
So yeah, all the ologies. That's basically it. Like, and by the way, I used to think that I didn't use, like, I used to be a big joke, like, you went to school for 15 years and you're doing like you're not using it. But I realized, like, it did teach me how to think. Like, so it did become beneficial in an indirect kind of way.
I was going to say that because some of the best marketers I know are either scientists or engineers, right? Because they come at it from a detach, and they're able to detach themselves and,
Yeah.
look at it as
Yeah.
experiments versus ego. Like, hey, let me try this experiment out. Oh, it didn't work. What can I fix?
Right.
Is
Right.
that what you're talking about?
Well, dude, like, yeah, because like, listen, in science, it doesn't work more than it works.
Yeah.
And like, so you learn to dissociate yourself from the result, just like marketing, right? Like, and the other thing that science really teaches is like very specific, one at a time variable manipulation. So you're not going to change 18 things at
Mm,
once and see if it works or not. You change one tiny thing based on the highest probability of it working. And then sequentially, one by one, you test it. So it teaches you resilience because you're going to fail a whole lot. And by the way, that PhD took me 7 years. So
wow.
there's a whole bunch of
That's
that's a whole bunch
resilience.
of resilience,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. Either that or like, I don't know, some sort of masochistic, like I don't know what it is, like something like that.
I
Um,
call it
but
determination,
then
but
we'll use that word, man. I like where you go with that. So we got that. We got how to really think in terms of like sequentially analyzing things, not becoming emotionally linked to the outcome, right? And just really looking at it from a perspective of like, hey, this is what it is. I can find the solution, and I can figure this out. And so I think it did have some real value there.
amazing. And because I see that. So, can you give me an example? Because tell me about growing Lifeonaire. Now, I mean, how long have you been running the company for?
Since 2016.
Okay, so 8 years. It's a lot of
Yeah.
time. What are some of the things that you've experimented with and haven't worked, and what are the things you've seen working right now?
Yeah. So we do, the way we help people is we have events, and then and that's, so our front end. So we really have three components to right now our kind of our approach. And so we have, on the front end, we have like a Lifeonaire book, like for instance, and this is done really well. We've sold over 50,000 copies of that. And then we have our events. We have two different events. Now, when I first started Lifeonaire, we only had the Get a Life Getaway, which really helps people with their personal vision and really figuring out things like how much money I need to make and how much time I have left for work and how do I want each component of my life to look like. But we never had the second event, which I put into creation when I took over, is called the Business Builder Workshop. Because like one of the mistakes we made was like, hey, and I think this is important for our business owners to think of this, like what are the objections that your people are already thinking of, or the thing that you're not providing that is keeping them from being successful? Like, and so for instance, in this case, we showed them how to have this great life and what that looked like, but we never followed it up with how do you create a business to support that life? Because a lot of the people we recognize have a vision that maybe has them working, I don't know, 20 hours a week or something, and they want to make up 100 grand or 300 grand, or whatever. And many jobs, not all, but many jobs would be probably not make that match. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to probably be able to do that. So you have to have a business. And so we were not meeting a need for the people we were helping. And so we were kind of like, I almost feel like we're kind of like, okay, here's what you want, but now we didn't show them how to get it. So that was a mistake we made. And so we have these two events, and then some of those people decide they want help and guidance. And so they join our combination of mastermind and coaching. And so, by the way, that is deliberate as well, because what we found, and again, the same exact principle that I just mentioned, is like finding what people need to be successful and then offering that to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, masterminds are great, but sometimes you don't get the one-on-one attention you need, and you don't have the in-depth, like really mentorship / coaching arrangement that could be beneficial for you. Conversely, like one-on-one coaching in and of itself could be great, but it's always easy for the student to say like, oh, that's easy for you. You're the coach.
Yeah.
Like you're like some guru up on the top of the mountain. But when you have both of those, like so we realized like, hey, you need both of these. So our program is, and by the way, there's been others now that have copied this, which is great. I'm glad. The more people we can help, the better. It doesn't have to be Lifeonaire, but like, so we have a coaching and mastermind, again, designed around the member success. And then what we've also done, and just by the term Lifeonaire, we've realized this is really a combination of life and business, because here's a big problem is there might be an awesome life coach out there who could help you with some real good things, but they may have no clue how to make money. And like we just talked about, you kind of need that too. And right.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem. But you could also have a business coach who could help you build a business, but they destroy your life in the process. So it's like really this kind of multi-dimensional program that is based, again, on, it's based on your clients, on your customers. Like, get there, dude. This is what I love, which you've done so well, is like, and I told you, I just finished reading your book recently, and I'm like, this is gold. And hearing from your people and seeing what they're successful with, seeing what the gaps are, that maybe, here's something I need to think about as a business owner to really produce something that's beneficial, that could really help our members. Because ultimately that's what we're all about, right? Making our customers and clients the most successful we can.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And listening to them and really listening to them, not listening to necessarily what they're saying they want, but listening to what the real problems are. Right. And I love that you help them get the vision, and you're like, now we need more of that. And the fact that you're doing business and life, I think, is so important, because I can't tell you how many people, like, in their business, I've coached them, and I'm like, why? They're like, I want to scale. I'm like, but why do you want to? It's like,
Right.
and they think it's freedom. And I'm like, well, in the agency space, getting to $1 million to $3 million you're actually going to lose freedom for a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think that's where people don't understand. And it's like, it's going to affect your life, and you have to kind of think that, and having that duality of it and listening to them is so important. But speaking of success stories, can you give me a few examples of how this is, some of the lives you've transformed?
Yeah. So, for instance, now I'll say this: we really have, and this is probably, I'm guessing every business has this. So we have people that are brand new to business, that are just starting out, right? And they want to learn how to kind of do it the right way. We have people that are kind of stuck in their business, and maybe they're not making the money they want, or they're working too much. And then we have successful people that really have just worked beyond the solution, where they're like, they're spending way more time in the business than they need to, and they really they could easily have the life they want if they just kind of like rearrange some things. And so let me give you an example of somebody, a woman named Lisa. So she comes to Lifeonaire. By the way, sometimes what I've seen, just a side note, and I honor, and I totally honor, like, all entrepreneurs, real estate investors, business owners, anybody who's taking that step for themselves. And a lot of times these are hardworking people who are smart and have skills. So Lisa was somebody who had a lot of skills, very smart, very hardworking. She, in her particular business, she got into real estate investing. Now, in the real estate investing world, there's a problem that, in particular, may or may not be present in other niches. But here's the thing: there's 5 dozen different ways you can invest in real estate. And so Lisa gets into real estate. She doesn't really have any clear definition of what she wants for her life. She doesn't have a vision. And so she has over 6 different businesses. And so she's doing, and a lot of this will just be gibberish to people that aren't familiar with real estate, but she's wholesaling houses. She wants to have Airbnbs. She wants to write notes and have notes for things. She wants to do rehabbing, and she has all these different things on her plate. And what ended up happening, and by the way, this does happen in other business ventures as well.
Yeah, 100%. I see this all the time.
Right. Her efforts were so diluted that none of the businesses were were providing the results that she knew they were capable of, because she was so spread thin. And so the vision was a tool that helped her. And by the way, the vision is what we work on, like, in Lifeonaire. This is that guiding document. Her vision helped her identify her strengths, what she was most passionate about, what she enjoyed the most, and where her biggest bang on the buck activities lied. She ended up cutting half of those businesses just cutting them right off the bat, and then focusing on the ones that really were in her wheelhouse. Ended up making way more money, working about half the amount of time, and really was much more fulfilled and happy. And now, some of the tools she used in there as well was really, and some of the things we teach is like how to use automation, how to build teams. There's things you need to learn how to do, but it did start with that vision. And I can tell you, like, that is a magical document that'll really help align your decision-making process in a way that'll really move you towards the end zone quicker than anything else I know.
I 100% agree. And it's because I see this all the time when companies come to me, because they're like, oh, you can do this marketing. I want to do this thing and market this thing and this thing. I'm like, whoa. Right. Because I'm like, they're like, I know it's all feels like it's the same industry, like that real estate.
Yeah.
But when you talk about wholesaling versus writing notes versus rehabbing, they're connected, but they're 3 completely different businesses, right?
They are, man. And we miss this. And so you're going after, and just by parallel to what we're talking about here, now you're trying to, like, well, hey, I'm gonna market this service, and I got this product over here and this one over here, and we're gonna do this over here because we're leaving money on the table. And what ends up happening is you make less money, you're more overwhelmed, you get more stressed, the business starts to implode on itself, and like, because you're too distracted.
And it's because of the lack of vision.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you, people, like, how important this is, and everyone kind of, because it seems like one of those woo-woo words, right? Vision.
It does, man. It's so touchy feely, like new age, like it totally is. I know, I hate that.
But I mean, I always think, I come back to the story of, like, Steve Jobs. I way overuse his stuff, or Walt Disney. Like, when Walt, like, people would come up to Walt and, like, he would just be staring off distance, and he's like, "No, I'm looking at what it's gonna be." Right. And he just knew what it was going to be. And it was like, he was on a napkin that he carried around, but he knew where everything was going. And it seems like it was all disparate, but he knew where it was going. It was a single vision. And really, any of these people we look at that are really successful, they had that single vision, didn't they?
Oh man, absolutely. Nothing happens without vision. I mean, finish the sentence. Where there is no vision, the people will perish.
Yeah.
Like, we know this. It's been around forever. We didn't invent it, but we've just kind of modernized it and weaponized it for people to use for their own purposes to really get what they want.
And I yeah, it's I'm rereading Think and Grow Rich, and it's amazing, because it's like, that's the big thing, is like a singular vision. And it's like, once again, 100 years old, 100 plus years old book. And it is so important. So talk to me now about, because I think that's absolutely crucial for marketing, right? And one of the things I've been working with people on is having a vision of the person you want to work with, right? Know that not just the avatar, but know their story, and know the story of working with them. But what are the keys to finding the right vision for you? Because I do talk to people, and they're like, I want to have $100 million company. I'm like, why? And they're like,
Yeah.
I just want one. Like,
Yeah.
what?
So, man,
Yeah.
so a couple tips here, by the way. And I love, by the way, what you said about Walt and Steve Jobs, and in your book you even mentioned like John Wooden as keeping it the basics, right? And your vision is the basics, and so it's so easy to overlook. This is so a couple of quick tips, and there is one difficulty that I run into more than anything else, and it is that. And listen, I'll just say up front, I personally am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not like, I don't think that way. But we have learned to value certain things, and we have been accustomed to associating certain things with being successful. And what that means is maybe it's $100,000 a year, or $1 million a year, or the cars or the house or whatever. And we also have this inherent human need to know where we stand in a hierarchy. And the easiest way to know that is to compare ourselves to our neighbors, or keeping up with the Joneses. We've heard this before, in terms of our material things. And so what we have to do first is really step back for a moment and say, do I really want this? Or is this what I've been told I should want, or what I think I should want, or what I'm supposed to want? And once you really question that, and that can be difficult, and that can be kind of confronting, that's the first step, because like many people are really pursuing somebody else's vision for their life. Maybe you have a family business, and the parents expected you to take it over when they moved on, or when they retired, and you never really wanted it, but you kind of felt like you had an obligation. Or everybody in your family is a physician, and so you're expected to go in the medical field. Like this, the versions of this are endless, but they've all. And now, by the way, you might also say like, well, I never was like that. Well, you were, but maybe you were motivated the other way. So instead of doing what you're supposed to do, you did the opposite. And so you were kind of the black sheep of the family, but you still were influenced by that. And so the first step is fully getting away from that. The next thing that we do, like at the Get a Life Getaway, there's 3 exercises, man. These are gold. And I'm going to tell them to the audience to be like, well, that sounds easy, but no one's going to do it. Number one exercise I love is, if you had 90 days to live what would you do? Forget about the estate planning stuff. I don't want to hear about your will and your trust and your blah, blah, blah. How are you going to spend your time? That's one way to start to identify what's important to you. The next thing, what would you like your children's lives to look like? Now, the reason we do this exercise, and we don't tell attendees this, and by the way, if you come to an event and now you kind of know the secrets, but like after they do the exercise, what we see people write down more than anything else is what they want, but they somehow have a filter on themselves. They think it's too late for them. It's impossible for them. It's not realistic, but they have this unbridled ambition for their children who they love immensely, and they want incredible things for their kids. And so they'll say things like, oh, they live happily and they have a great relationship and they're healthy and all these things that they really want for themselves. That's the second exercise. And the last one is this is a little bit morbid, but there's a really good point behind this. Let's say you passed away and someone is reading your eulogy. What would they say about you in two different versions? Number one, if you passed today and they couldn't lie and they had to tell the whole truth and they knew everything about you, not just what you want people to know, because and it has to be the whole truth and nothing but the truth. What would they say about you? And then the second version of that, what do you want people to say? How do you want to be remembered? Because that will show you the gap maybe of where you currently are and where you're living versus what you really want to be. Now, I'll tell you, very, very infrequently do I hear people say like, he was an incredible businessman who made all this money. Like, no, it's always stuff like he was generous. She was kind. They cared a lot about other people. They, gave generously. Like it's those kinds of things. And so I think that's just a couple ways to kind of start cracking that wall to help people like really figure out for themselves what they value the most and what that vision might look like.
Those are so powerful, right? And sitting down and even just trying that for 30 minutes, really, especially that gap piece, right? And then the gap piece,
It's tough, man.
It's tough, and you have to be honest with yourself. And so when you do this, where do you see people you say most people won't do this. Why do they get stuck in this?
I think for a couple of reasons. Number one is I think people are afraid to create a vision sometimes because it means they can fail. So, Jordan Peterson uses this term like willful negligence.
Yep.
Or neglect rather, where it basically says like, hey, if I don't set a goal, I can't fail, right? If I don't have a destination, then I don't mind if I'm floating around at sea aimlessly and endlessly, like, because I can't fail. And so people are afraid of failure, number one. Like they feel like they can't achieve it or they can't have it, so why bother dreaming? I think this weird thing happens and it's so funny, man, because like I have young kids and like it's so not the way that we are inherently made. Like we are meant to dream and we are made to imagine these incredible things. And somehow like when we become adults, like I don't know what it is, if it's social pressure, if it's a fear of looking bad, status, like we just stop dreaming. We try to play it safe. We play it small because it's easier, because if we fail, that means somehow we're a failure. And that's something I think that really holds people back. And then the other thing is sometimes they don't even know what they want because they haven't done it in so long. They're like, they want to know, but they don't know because they've been so stuck in a rut, like, and they just don't even know what they want to do for fun anymore, or what they find fulfilling or enjoyable other than work. Right. Which, by the way, I love work. Like it should be enjoyable. You should love what you're doing, but there's got to be other things too.
Yep. No, it's yeah. Definitely. It's interesting, right? It's so interesting how people will do that. And, and like you said at the beginning too, and just letting other people's dreams be your dreams. And we feel like, it's like, hey, I've got to do that because it's easy to default to that too. And it's so powerful. And, you've got this business and people are, when they get their vision and now it's next steps, what are usually the next steps? Because you talked about working through it. I get my vision. What are the things that you usually see people have to do next to really hone in their business and life?
Yeah. So the vision is great, but you also need you need the plan too. Like, cause like, it's, you need the strategy, and Lifeonaire is not like I said before, it's not this cloudy, touchy, feely good kind of thing. It's like strategy. And so what you need to do is start breaking down into daily actions and habits and activities, like how you're going to make these things a reality. The good news is many people will find things on their vision they can start doing immediately. They just have neglected them. They haven't given them the attention that they desire, or sorry, that they deserve, that they desire for these things. Now, the part of this though that really where the rubber hits the road is on the business side of things. If you're gonna, let's say your vision has you working 15 or 20 or 25 hours. And by the way, I'd say in Lifeonaire, the average is about 25 hours a week people can find and still live their vision. You got to do things differently in the business, and you've got to really, you can't be the person who's doing it all and swinging the hammer and baking the cupcakes and closing the store and doing your QuickBooks. And like, you've got to really learn to elevate yourself. And I know everybody knows this, but it's so challenging to actually do it. And it takes time and it's not easy. But you just got to stay with it. And like little by little, you'll whittle away till you get that freedom.
Yeah. No, that's where the coaching comes in too. And because I know it's so easy. I mean, I work with coaches and it's like, it's so easy to say, oh, this doesn't work. Or, and it's when you get stuck that you really need the coaching, because everyone gets all excited. They got this vision, they got the plan, and then it just sits there. Or they're like, I'm going to get to this in 6 months. I'm too busy for this right now. And so you do all this at the event, you've changed lives. I want to hear one more story of someone left the event and joined the mastermind and how their life changed.
Yeah, dude, I got a really cool, he's turned into a friend. His name is Josh. And so here's an example of someone who is kind of already successful. So Josh had 600, he was a multifamily business owner. And so, by the way, it's a business because it wasn't him managing the properties. He had a team. And so he comes to Lifeonaire, working, I wouldn't say around the clock, but certainly way more than he wanted to, was not able to travel because he had been doing all of the work himself.
Oh my gosh.
And so and he has 600 units.
What?
Some of which he owns, all of which he manages. And so he comes into Lifeonaire. We help him create his vision. We start helping him learn how to build a team, put things together in terms of automation, all these, really simplifying and streamlining the business, elevating his staff and helping them kind of grow into their roles as well. And so Josh now has 850 units. So he's grown his business, because that's one important point I want to make is like, everybody thinks that you have to get smaller if you're going to work less. And that is not true. You just have to do it differently and make sure you're strategic about it. So he's gone from 600 units to 850 while also traveling for 4 to 5 months per year with his wife, Kayla. So he just got back probably about a month ago from a tour of Asia, and there's pictures all over his Facebook where he's just, everywhere from Vietnam to, went to Spain, like all these incredible things. And his business continues to run remotely without him. Now, an interesting thing in Josh's case is he said, I had a conversation with him and he's like, dude, well, and first of all, this is another point. He's like, man, I'm kind of feeling like tired of travel. He's like, I kind of like the freedom, but now I feel like, I don't know, I want to be home and I want to have a routine and I want to like just kind of do that. And he's feeling a need right now to pour into his team. So maybe he said he's going to work a little bit more to grow up the next batch and to nurture his team members to grow even further in their roles, so that he can really like help them live their lives in the vision that they want to live. And so it's this evolution. Like early on, you got to probably work a little more than you want, but you got to get out of there as quickly as you can. And eventually you're going to get to the point like Josh, where, another $10,000 or even $100,000 or another zero in your bank account does not feel any different. And you're going to want to kind of help other people and pour into other people and see other people grow as well. Because that's, I think, ultimately where like really true success lies.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's the, the hierarchy of needs, right? And, once you get to a certain point, there's, having 100 million or 500 million, it's a different, it's a different yacht, right?
Yeah. Right.
That's awesome. So you've got an event coming up here in Orlando. Tell me about like how someone signs up to events. How does someone get into the Lifeonaire ecosystem?
Yeah, man. So the best, if you've never, if you want to kind of just get a first taste of this, grab a Lifeonaire book. You can find it on Amazon. and that's not a how-to book. It's kind of just an exposure to like the philosophies. Um, the events are awesome, man. So we have the as you mentioned in Orlando, we have a Get a Life Getaway coming up, and that's where we work on the vision and we talk about all the things related to personal life. We also do other events virtually. We have things like that. But you'll see all that on lifeonaire.com, and that's also where you can register. And so the tickets are available there. I teach these personally. This is not something that I've delegated because I love it, man. Like I love getting to do this. And so, yeah, it's going to be an awesome event.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, so we'll put a link to the book in the show notes. We'll put a link to lifeonaire.com in there as well. And you can find out all about the event here in Orlando if you're local, or if you want to travel down to Orlando. And then you have one in Milwaukee too, right? My hometown.
That's right. Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome.
We have one in Milwaukee. Yeah.
And so we'll put a link to all that in the show notes. Jason, where's the best place to follow you?
Man, Facebook is probably the best if you just want to follow what I'm doing. But listen, I'm always available to people that want to if they have a question or if they need help with something. Like it's just Jason Wojo at lifeonaire.com. It's my personal email. If there's something I can help you with or point you in the right direction, I'd be glad to do that.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show. Well, you're gonna have to do that because I'm not gonna put in the show notes so he doesn't get spammed.
Yeah, thanks, man.
But we'll make sure put a link to your Facebook in there, and so people can follow you. And Jason, thank you so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother.
And thank you all for taking Jason on your journey. Make sure to check out Lifeonaire. I mean, vision is so important. So make sure to do that. It seems like something you can put off. It's so important. But thank you again for taking us on your journey. This has been Iron Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.